You ever wonder what the process is to buy a home? Maybe you're just looking for some tips for your next property. Well, make sure you stick around for this video because all that information in this comprehensive guide is coming up next.
Add it up, bankroll, euro, peso, add it up, I'm just doing me, everything is on me, oh you matter what, add it up, bankroll, euro, peso.
Hey residents, welcome back to the channel. My name is MJ, I'm a realtor out here in Las Vegas, Nevada, working with the Berkshire Hathaway brand. And here on this channel, we tour all around the Las Vegas Valley looking at builder model homes as well as existing inventory. However, on today's video, we're doing a comprehensive guide to home buying. But first off, I'd like to invite you to become a resident of Las Vegas Home Tours by smashing that subscribe button and hitting that bell notification so you don't miss a single video when I upload. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started into this real estate discussion. I got my notes ready. Make sure you have a notepad and a pen ready to go, because there's a lot of valuable information in here. Let's go. As with anything in life, we have to take that first step by getting ready for something. So step 0 is actually going to be preparation,
which we shall call Preparation H.
What do I mean by preparation? It's going to be the down payment. It's going to be getting your credit score ready. It's going to be have your debt to income ratio in line, as well as understanding the process. You're already here watching this video, so you're trying to understand the process anyway. So as part of this preparation, let's go over what the different types of loans that you can get are. First off is going to be a conventional loan. This is going to be your most common type of loan that you can get. As far as the down payment for a conventional loan, the minimum requirement is a 3%. However, there's a lot of requirements to meet to get that 3% down payment as your minimum. The general down payment that is going to be required for a minimum on a conventional loan is going to be 5%. However, you're going to want to try to get above a 20% down payment, so you're avoiding the PMI. What is PMI? PMI is private mortgage insurance. It's attached to mortgages that are under 20% down payment or don't have enough equity in the home to cover that. Basically, it's an insurance policy for the lender if you default on your loan. Just try to keep that in mind as you're preparing to buy your home. I highly recommend having 20%, but 5% generally is going to be the minimum that's going to be required. There's also down payment assistance programs available all across the country. I've done videos on these before. I'll put a card up above as well as put some links in the description below so you can access those easily. As far as your credit score, a minimum of 620 is going to be required. You're generally going to want to have a little bit higher than that. We'll go over that here in a little bit more detail. And finally, your debt to income ratio must be below 50%. So what is debt to income ratio? Debt to income ratio is very simple. So if you have $2,000 in bills a month and then you make $6,000, you have a 33% debt to income ratio. Pretty simple to calculate. You don't have to necessarily calculate all your bills such as utilities and things like that. More your credit cards, your car payment, your student loans, things like that. Moving on to the second type of loan, we are going to go over FHA. FHA is insured by the Federal Housing Administration. There is always a mortgage insurance premium to this. Initially, it is 1.75% of the purchase price to set up the account. And then moving forward, it is 0.85% of the principal every year. So to put that in perspective, on a $300,000 home, at 1.75% is $5,250 up front just to get that started. That is going to come into your closing costs and needs to be paid up front. However, it can be built into the loan as with all FHA closing costs. So in terms of the maintenance of the mortgage insurance premium, it is 0.85% annually charged on the principal, and you'll be paying it monthly. So to figure this out, you're going to have just for a roundabout example, we'll take a $300,000 principal, we'll times that by 0.85. That comes out to $2,550. We're dividing by 12 for every single month because you're paying it monthly, which will come out to $212.50 every single month on top of your current mortgage and interest. That's actually quite a bit of money. So think about this, guys. If you really want to save some money on your mortgage and set yourself in the right path in the first place, get that 20% down, you'll be saving that much more a month, plus the additional 20% down that you're already putting. That's going to be a chunk of money and gives you a lot of buying power at the end of the day. Moving on with FHA, one of the nice things is they only require 3.5% down, and they have really lenient loan requirements because of that mortgage insurance premium. With the 3.5% down, it is only required that you have a 580 credit score. If you put 10% down, it's only required that you have a 500 to 579 credit score. You see the difference there? That is a big difference in the credit score. So if you're a little bit more credit challenged and you have some money to spend, maybe this is the loan for you. As far as the debt to income ratio, they don't want to see more than a 43% debt to income ratio. However, they don't have a set number, so it's going to be evaluated by the loan officer. They also don't like to see 31% of your mortgage being part of that debt. So keep that in mind. If you make a lot of money, maybe this won't be a big deal, but it'll be up to the loan officer at the end of the day. Next up, we're going to talk about VA loans or Veteran Affair loans. First off, thank you very much, veterans, for your service. It is greatly appreciated. You've done an amazing service for this country. Thank you so much. One of the best things about the VA loan is there's 0% down required. However, you are going to be paying more in fees if you put 0% down versus if you put 5% down. If you put 5% down, you're going to be saving a lot of money. So keep that in mind. It's not a big deal. At the end of the day, you're not paying that much more in fees, but it is a little bit more. And what are these fees, you ask? Well, if you've never used your VA benefit before, it's going to be 2.3%. If you have used your VA benefit before, it's going to be 3.6%. However, if you do put that 5% down, you're going to pay less in these fees. Most companies like to see a 620 or better credit score for your VA loan. And as far as the debt to income ratio, there is no set limit here again. It's going to be evaluated by the lender once again. And then finally, the last type of loan that you can get is going to be a USDA loan. This is another government-backed loan that requires 0% down. There's always mortgage insurance attached to this loan. That's how they do the 0% down. However, it is going to be much cheaper than FHA. The percentages for this loan are going to be 1% upfront versus the FHA's 1.75%. And then the annual maintenance fee is much less as well at 0.35% versus FHA's 0.85%. To put this into perspective, I'll put a little grid on the screen showing the math here. But on a $300,000 home at 0.35%, you're going to be spending annually $1,050. And if we divide that by 12, you're going to be spending $87.50 a month extra. Versus FHA, that is a $125 a month difference. Now, what do you need to do to get this type of loan versus an FHA? Well, you have to live in a rural area, unfortunately. You can't be living in the middle of the city in a dense area. You can't get a USDA loan there. So most people are going to have to get an FHA loan because of this. However, if you can qualify for a USDA loan, by all means, go for it. You'll be saving a little bit more money. As far as the credit score, they like to see, once again, a 620 or better, and the debt to income ratio cannot exceed 50%. Next up, we're going to talk about credit and some of the things we need to do to understand what credit is and how we might be able to improve it to get a better interest rate. So, what is credit? Well, credit is basically your scorecard or your report card of how good you are. It ranges from 300 all the way up to 850. There are different levels. There's 5 different levels. I'm not going to go too much into detail. You can do your own research here. One thing I do want to say is I'm not a financial expert. I don't know that you should necessarily listen to me here, but let's give it a go. So what are the factors that go into your credit score? Well, I got them written down here. Let me go over them for you real quick. Well, first off, the biggest one is going to be your payment history. Have you been on time? Have you been late? That accounts for 35% of your credit score. Next up is going to be amounts owed. How much money do you owe on your debts? That amounts for 30% of your credit score. That's 65% right there, just the first two. And then there's your credit length. How long have you had credit? Have you owned a home for a while? Have you owned a couple cars that you've had some loans on, as well as some credit cards, student loans, things like that? You have a pretty established credit at that point. However, if you're just getting your first car loan or your first credit card, maybe you don't have such a long credit history. However, this only accounts for 15% of your credit score. The next step is new credit. This is why you don't go out and buy a new car or get a new credit card when you are trying to buy a house. There is 10% factor here of adjusting your credit score. So if you go out and buy a brand new car in the middle of buying a home, guess what? You're hurting your chances to get the home. So as far as your new credit, just stay established. When you're coming into buying a home, just stay put for a little while. You'll be good. Once you close on the home, go buy that new car. Have fun. And then finally, there's credit mix. How many different types of credit do you have? Do you have a credit card? Do you have a car loan? Do you have a student loan? Do you have a mortgage? That's different credit mix. So if you have a good mix of credit and you're constantly on time, you're paying your bills regularly, you don't have a high amount, you're going to have a higher credit score. So just keep that in mind as you're building your credit. Try to be responsible with it. Don't go overboard. Okay, so now we got our credit under control, but what number should we be shooting for? Well, generally speaking, at 740, this is where you're going to hit the wall of the lowest interest rates possible on a home loan. And then at 760, this is where the lenders will start bending over backwards to get you in their office and sign that mortgage paperwork. They really want you in there. This is where they'll start offering you credits and rebates on your mortgage just to be able to get your business. You're the cream of the crop at that point. So this is what you want to be shooting for. You want to be shooting for 760 or above. Okay, so you're not quite to 760 yet, but what can I do to get my credit up there just a little bit more? First off, I'd highly recommend paying off any high interest credit cards or any high interest debt. This is going to be huge for you. You're going to save a lot of money. If you're paying 30% on a credit card, that is a lot of money every year, guys. You guys need to get that paid off immediately.
Do it. Do it.
Next up, I would pay off other credit cards that have a lower interest rate, or if you have a high interest rate student loan or high interest rate car loan, go for those. Pay those off as soon as possible. Another question we get a lot is, when should we buy? Well, there is a couple different ways to answer this question. It really depends on what you want as a buyer. So generally speaking, think of it this way. If you were going to sell your home and the holidays were coming up,
Oh my God!
but you don't really need the money, are you going to sell your home right away? Probably not. You're probably going to wait till the spring, right? You want to wait till have all that family time in your home, get the bills from the holiday season out of the way, and then you can sell your home in the spring. Generally speaking, this is the thought process people follow. They have their fun throughout the holidays and then they list in March or April. That's why there's more inventory on the market come spring and summer. Now in the winter time, that said, those that are listing generally want to try to get rid of their home as quickly as possible. This is not always the case, so just bear that in mind. But you could probably get a little bit of a better deal in the winter time than you can in the summer, where there's more inventory. So that said, you're probably going to be more likely to find the home that you like in the spring or the summer versus saving money in the winter. Now, segueing into my next point, should I wait for a crash? In my opinion,
Oh, hell no!
let me put this in perspective, guys. So if you wait and you wait and wait for a crash, guess what? The market has been going up and up and up, and all you're doing is missing out on equity. If you sat here and told me 7 years ago that I want to wait for a crash, there's a crash coming. Well, there hasn't been a crash in a very long time. If you would have bought your house back then at $200,000, guess what? That house is now worth over $400,000. Think about it, guys. Also, another thing to consider is the interest rates. Interest rates are still really, really low right now. As of the time of this filming, a 30-year mortgage is about 3.3%. If you have enough money to do a 15-year mortgage, guess what? You can get an interest rate at 2.5. That's fantastic. So definitely take that into consideration, because generally speaking, if there's a crash, interest rates are going to go up because the market is going to be flooded with buyers. So your interest rate is going to be higher. Just to put this in perspective a little bit more, if you have a 30-year mortgage at 4% interest for $300,000, your monthly payments are going to be roughly $1,432. Now, if you have the same mortgage but 3% interest, your mortgage will be $1,265. That is a difference of $167 a month. Now, in a 30-year mortgage, there's 360 payments. If you times 167 by 360, guess what? Over the life of the mortgage, you are saving $60,000. Whoa. That is a ton of money. In fact, that's 30 tons of money. Another thing to consider is if you're looking to be in your house for more than 7 years, do you really think after 7 years you're going to care if you saved a few $1,000s in your home by waiting for a crash? I don't think so. Also, generally speaking, the housing market is going to continue to go up. You're going to make your payments building equity on your home rather than paying somebody else's mortgage. Just think about it a little bit, guys. Waiting for a crash is not the right answer. If you're ready to buy a home, go ahead and move forward and buy your home. And the last step in preparation, write down what you want in a home versus what you need in a home. Do you work from home? You might need an office. Do you have 4 kids and you and your husband? Well, you might need 5 bedrooms. Maybe you only need 4. I don't know. But this is up to you. You need to decide what is your wants versus what is your need. This is actually one of the fun parts of the preparation, is getting ready and understanding what you want in a home. Keep in mind, once you get out there and you start looking at homes, this list is probably going to change as you see stuff on the market and you realize, well, maybe I actually don't need that. Maybe that's more of a want. You'll just start realizing this stuff as you get out there and start looking at things. All right, so now you're on to the next step. You're all ready to buy your home. You have your credit score in line. You have your down payment ready. Your DTI is nice and low. You're ready. Next step, what do? You go talk to a lender.
Say what?
You don't go talk to a realtor first? No. You need to go talk to and interview lenders. So what are you looking for in a lender? Well, one, you don't want to pay an exorbitant amount of fees. So that's going to be one of the questions, is get some examples of loans and how much fees that they have. Next up, you're going to want to be asking them, how fast are you going to be responding to me? Are you going to kind of do whatever, or are you actually going to get the loan closed quickly? That's more than important in today's market. It's also very important in this market that you get a fully underwritten qualification prior to going out and looking for a home. In this market, I'll go over it here in just a little bit, but this market is absolutely insane, and I will tell you why here in just a little bit. What are they going to want from you? They're going to want to look at 2 years of tax returns, up to 6 months of bank statements. They're also going to want to see up to 6 months of pay stubs. They want to make sure that you're working and making the appropriate amount of money. They'll pull a credit report to make sure that you've been doing your due diligence, but you are, because you went through step 0. And also, they're going to need some paperwork on other assets you might have. So if you have another home, they're going to want to see that. If you have a nice stock portfolio, they're going to want to know that you have that. It'll all help you out. It's all assets, and it helps secure your loan. Lastly, I want to touch on down payment assistance. If you do go with specific programs, they do need to be certified with a down payment assistance program. So just keep that in mind. Part of your interview questions, if you're planning to use a down payment assistance program, ask them if they're qualified and on the list to be able to use that specific program. And step 2, now that you have that fully underwritten approval, you can go out and find a realtor. Now, you're going to want to do the same thing here as you did with the lender. You want to interview realtors. You don't want to be hiring your buddy just because he got his license a couple months ago. He has no experience. He doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know the steps that need to be taken to save you money and get your offer accepted. We're going to be going over some of the strategies to get your offer accepted here in a little bit. So make sure you pay close attention to that, because that in today's market is extremely important. Some of you might be asking, why do I even need a realtor? Can't I just go find a house myself? Well, yeah, you could, but you're still going to be paying the fee for the realtor that you're not even having. So why not have that extra protection? Also, it takes a long time to understand this market and to understand the process of buying a home. An experienced realtor will have this knowledge and information to back you up and get the best deal possible for the home you want. Just think about that when you're interviewing realtors and deciding if you really want to go by yourself or not. I know I'm a realtor, I'm a little bit biased here, but I would highly recommend getting a realtor to protect yourself. Now for step 3, the fun one, you actually get to go look at properties. Now that you hired a realtor, they have more than likely sat down, done some paperwork with you, explained a few things out, and you understand the process even a little bit more than after watching this video, because as comprehensive as I'm trying to make it, I'm not going to be covering everything, especially given the different markets across the country. Nevertheless, they are probably going to take your criteria and send you a list from their local MLS via email. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to sit down and kind of prioritize it out. Look through it, study it a little bit, figure out what your top picks are. But a lot of realtors, what they do, they'll say, pick your top 3 or your top 5, and we'll go look at those. I tell you to prioritize them because, one, the way the market is, you need to be on top of your game to be able to get the home that you want. Second, if you go and look at the first home and you're like, oh my God, I love this home, let's put an offer in.
Don't do that.
You want to look at different homes because you don't know if that third home down the line is going to be the best home for you. Maybe it'll be the 7th, maybe it'll be the 15th home down the line. Who knows? If you go and look at your first home and you don't look at any others, you don't have anything to compare it to. That said, just take a couple days looking over all the homes that you possibly can. Also, as you're out looking for homes, like I said before, your criteria is probably going to change. You're going to understand a little bit more what you want and what you need in a home. So just let your realtor know, have a good communicating relationship with them, and they'll be happy to help you out. One of my last points on this topic is this is a huge investment for you. This is going to be one of the biggest assets you'll buy in your entire life. This is where your family is going to be spending most of their time and living. Don't you think it's important to take a little bit of extra time to find that house that you really want and the one that you truly love versus the one you just settle for and you're like, it's okay. Step 4, after looking at houses for a couple days straight, you finally decided on the house that you want. Let's put an offer in. How do you get that offer accepted? Well, first, just like anything, preparation. You need to know what's going on in the market. What are we dealing with here? What's the seller all about? So as far as the market, you need to understand what market you're in. The market I'm in here in Vegas, our inventory is scarcely short. We are down to less than a month of inventory. Just to put it in perspective, a little bit more than a year ago, we had 12,000 houses on the market. Now we're down to 2,400. It's absolutely bananas, guys. Once a house comes on the market, it immediately gets multiple offers, and many houses are selling 15, 20,000, even more above asking price with bidding wars. It's crazy. Hopefully, I wish you luck in it, and I hope you're in a market that has more inventory than we do. If that's the case, maybe you'll have a little bit more buying power, and I really hope that for you. Now that you understand the market, what about the seller? Who are they? What do they want? This is where your realtor is going to come into play. Your realtor should, at this point, be at least communicating and have at least basic knowledge of who the realtor is that you're dealing with and the seller. They should know what the seller's priorities are here. Is the seller looking to get more money out of the house? Do they need to move quickly? What about rent back? Maybe that's important to them. Who knows? But your realtor should know this at this point. Now, depending on their answer, it's more than likely going to be the price. The price of the home in this market is going to be one of the biggest things. Just be ready to come in, if it's really the house you want, 1 to 3% above the asking price. I'll come over some other strategies here real shortly to be able to make sure that your offer is the one that gets accepted. But you need to understand that 1 to 3% above asking price is not that much. Keep in mind, if you come in at $5,000 above the asking price, you know what $5,000 is in a mortgage, guys, for 30 years? $24 a month. It's nothing. Are you really willing to risk the house that you love, that is perfect for your family, over $24 a month? Probably not. Consider just paying that a little bit extra money. Now, I'm not saying go bananas here, because you still want to do what makes sense. You're not going to want to pay $400,000 for a $200,000 home. It doesn't make sense. So make sure it makes sense. It's still within your budget. That's why it's important not to get emotional in this process. It's very, very hard not to, because you're spending a lot of money. You're spending a lot of time looking at these homes and trying to understand the process. And it can definitely be frustrating, especially if you're getting offers rejected. But that's why I say it's important to make sure that you have a good realtor that understands the process. And finally, when you're making the offer, make sure that you understand that if the price that you offer goes above appraisal, the difference there is going to have to be paid out of pocket. So if you offer, say, $320,000 and the appraisal comes back $300,000, you have to pay $20,000 out of pocket to get that home unless you renegotiate the deal. In this market here in Las Vegas, chances are the seller might say, tough luck, if you can't pay that $20,000, we'll take the next one. But if you have more inventory in your market, maybe you have a little bit more negotiating power. As far as other strategies, there's a lot to go over here. However, this is not a finite list. I have 9 items here, but this will simply just give you a good thought process of how you should be thinking moving forward into how offers work and to be able to get your offer the one that's accepted. First off, we've already kind of touched on this, is having that fully underwritten approval already in place. Now, if your realtor finds out that this seller is speed motivated, this is going to help you so much. If you have another buyer coming in with an FHA loan that's going to take 30 days, but you already have the fully underwritten pre-approval, well, your loan is going to be faster. You already shown the underwriter that you're qualified. That's going to be quicker. Further to the next point, you can actually ask the lender, if you have this already in place, to speed up the closing date a little bit more. If they are speed motivated, then this is going to put you way above everybody. Even if your offer is a couple $1,000s under the next one, but you can close that much faster, guess what? That actually might win you the deal. The next one is real simple, kind of makes sense. If you put more money down on the home, that actually shows that you're a stronger buyer and that you probably have a higher credit score and more qualified to buy. That means you're more likely to close on your loan and get those people moving on to their next. And then segueing into the next point from down payment, you could go with a little bit more earnest money. If you don't know what earnest money is, basically it's the money you put down with the offer to show how serious you are with this offer. So that said, if you put more earnest money down, that's showing you its strength as a buyer, as well as how much you're willing to put on the line to get this house. Another strategy is quote unquote writing a love letter to the seller. A lot of times people will call it just a letter to the seller or a cover letter or a letter of intent. You can basically say, I love this house for this reason, or floor plan is perfect for how we're going to be using it. However, you got to be careful with equal housing. That way the owner of the home doesn't accept the offer due to race or ethnicity, familial status, things like that. So just be a little bit careful when you're writing that. Have your realtor review it, make sure it's all good. Another thing to think about is if the seller is motivated for reasons of rent back. What I mean by that is if they sell the home and then they can't find a home, well, they're in trouble. So basically what rent back will do is that you will be able to receive rent from the seller for as long as you guys agree on, to give them time to be able to get out there and find a new home. So basically what you would do here is part of the offer, you would say, okay, well, you need 3 weeks to find your next home. We will offer you to be able to stay in the home for free for those 3 weeks. Thereafter, we will charge X amount of rent, but we do need the house by X date. Another thing that could happen, your realtor is going to have to try to make this happen, but you could try to offer it in person. Think about it this way. So when you receive a letter for somebody versus actually seeing them in person and talking to them, you have more of a connection in person than you do with the letter, right? So if you go in person and submit the offer, more than likely you're going to strike up conversation. Unless you absolutely hate each other, it's probably going to benefit you. Personally though, I'm going to give you a warning. As a listing agent, I would not allow this to happen. I would want to just see all offers on paper right in front of me. Another thing you could do is actually offer to pay some of the expenses of the seller. For example, the home warranty. If they want to add a home warranty on, you could offer, say, hey, we'll go ahead and pay for that home warranty. It's only like $500. It's not that big of a deal. You could also pay the HOA transfer fee. That's going to save them anywhere from $200 to $600. That's another strategy you have. You could offer to pay their fees for the county transfer tax, or the escrow fees, or the seller's title policy. There's a lot of things you can pay for here to help influence the seller to accept your offer. Lastly, one thing I want to touch on, this is going to kind of be up to your realtor to discuss this with you and how you want to do the offer. And if you're willing to put a little bit of extra money out of pocket to get the home. One thing you could do is in the offer, you could say, okay, we'll pay the appraised value of this house plus $5,000 or plus 1% of that value or X amount of dollars. It's however much you want to add to that. So if the house appraises for $300,000, that's the price you would pay plus the amount that you offered. Now, let me ask you this. In this type of offer situation, would you rather accept an offer that says we will pay $5,000 above the appraised value, or would you rather accept an offer that is offering $305,000? Just think about it for a second. It's up to you what you decide and how that sounds to you. So now we're on to step 5. You've had your offer accepted. Your realtor's done a great job writing all the paperwork, getting your offer accepted on the first try. What now? Well, it's time for the due diligence period. It's time for escrow to get started. It's time for inspections, and it's time for the loan approval. At this point, there's going to be a lot of moving parts in the background, and if you have a seller that is motivated by speed, you're going to need to be on top of your game to get the paperwork to those people that are requesting it ASAP. But even still, I would highly recommend that you get the paperwork over to them as fast as possible when they request it, just to help improve the chances of getting the loan accepted as quickly as possible. So the due diligence period, what is it? I don't even know what that means. Well, basically, it's the amount of time after the acceptance of the offer given in the contract for the buyer to do their inspections and discover everything about the property that they can. And if they don't like what they're seeing, they can back out of the deal without any risk to their earnest money deposit. Here in Nevada, you'll oftentimes see it written for 10 to 15 calendar days, so roughly 2 weeks that you have that time to do your due diligence, and that will execute at the time of the acceptance of the offer. In other states, you could see it as long as 10 or 15 or even more calendar or business days. Also, the start time could be different depending on your market. It can start when the purchase agreement is accepted or when escrow is open. Next up is inspections. I would recommend that you get all inspections that you possibly can that make sense. For example, here in Las Vegas, there's a lot of sunshine all the time. There's a lot of houses that are getting solar panels on top of them nowadays. Would I get a roof inspection on a house that has solar panels on the roof?
You're goddamn right.
As I've had solar panels put on my house, I listen to them put the solar panels on the house. They're not easy on your roof, so definitely get a roof inspection for solar panels. Also, just having a roof inspection overall, that way you know you have that personal security that everything is intact.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
You're probably going to be required to have a general inspection anyway. Either way, I would highly recommend it. A lot of states require you to have a septic inspection if you do have a septic tank, or if you have a well, you need to get that inspected as well. There's a lot of different types of inspections. If it makes sense to get that inspection,
Do it.
Now, depending on what comes back from those inspections, you can come back to the seller and say, I would like these repairs done, or you can ask for the money to have the repairs done after the fact. What I would actually recommend is taking all the reports and handing them to the listing agent and then saying, the repairs are going to cost this much money, but we'll take this much money. So the reason I say that is if you put it line by line, the seller is going to look at those items and say, oh, doorknob, $50, I could do that for 10. They're going to nitpick every single little thing on that list. However, if you just put a whole number on there, they're more than likely just going to say, screw it, just give them what they want. Let's get this deal closed. We're almost there. Let's close it. At this point, escrow will have been opened and the earnest money deposit will be transferred with the title company. The title of the property will be reviewed by the title company to make sure it's clear to be transferred and there's no liens on the property. The lender will order an appraisal of the property to determine the value. And then once all that paperwork is done, the final loan approval will be submitted. And then finally, once all the contingencies are met and removed, the final closing date will be issued. Most of the contingencies are going to be typically for the buyer. So for example, some of these common contingencies that you'll find are going to be a home inspection contingency. So that's part of your due diligence anyway. So if something comes back during the inspection, you have the right to back out. Appraisal contingency makes sense. If the house comes in way above appraisal or way below, the buyer has the right to get out. Sometimes in this case, it could be the seller as well. Mortgage or finance contingency, basically the buyer is contingent on getting a loan. Home sale contingency is a little bit more complex. It's basically saying you as a buyer have to sell your current home to be able to afford this next home that you want to buy. Finally, is a title contingency, basically is protecting the buyer against a dirty title, basically a house that can't be sold, so you can back out of the process. Most markets have these protections anyway during their due diligence period, so it's not too big of a deal, but it's still good to be able to protect yourself through the process. And then step 6, we're almost home. So the final steps. The loan documents will be sent to the title company for signatures. The lender will send the funds to the title company to be dispersed to either the mortgage company or the seller, whoever gets their money. The deed is then recorded with the county recorder's office. And then step 7, you finally get the keys to your home. After all that process, you finally get to move in, you can enjoy your home. Congratulations. So even though we're reaching the end of this video, let's talk about some final thoughts here. How long does this process take? So if you're a cash buyer, you can actually close on a home extremely fast. You can do it within about 2 weeks. If you're getting a loan, you can typically expect anywhere from 30 to 45 days, closer to the latter. If you're having a home built, you're looking closer to 6 to 9 months, generally speaking. As of right now, there's a lot of material shortages, so it's actually pushing the process back a little bit more and raising prices on new homes a little bit as well. If you guys have any questions about this process, I'm more than happy to help you out and answer those questions. Just let me know in the comments below. I truly appreciate you guys sticking through this entire video. I know it's been a long video, a lot longer than I typically put up, but I do appreciate you guys stopping by. Just let me know in the comments below what you guys think, if you have any questions. But as always, I really appreciate you guys stopping by and checking it out. We'll see you guys in the next video. Later.
Get me out of here.